Hey everybody, I hope and pray that you're doing well today. So we come to our word from the Word. And today that word is variety. Variety. Now, one thing is clear as you look around this world, you see a variety of people, a variety of backgrounds, a variety of skin color, hair length, or, like mine. You have all these things. It is plenty of variety out there. And I love the fact that God has created us with such wonderful variety. And it just kind of that beautiful picture that you see, all the different colors, right? If he's going to paint a painting, he's using all the colors that he's got. And, that's kind of like when you was a kid, you're trying to use the Crayola box and you started off, you used to have like the 8-pack and then the 12-pack and the 16-pack. And then they get the big box, got like 96 crayons in it. Thinking, man, I didn't know there was that many shades of blue. But anyway, I love that variety that we see. Well, here today, and kind of in the background of all of what's going on with Israel and all the law and everything else, he is setting the people apart, right? There's so much variety. How can we stand out? And specifically, how could Israel stand out even in the midst of their culture and all the things that they were facing? Now, again, the church is not Israel. Israel's not the church, and there are some things that are different for the church today than they were for them, but the same principle applies. That God has called us out of the world, right? So that even in that beautiful variety that is in the world, the church still to be set apart. And we see that same thing for Israel. And as I said a moment ago, it kind of the background for the law. Now, as we continue today in Deuteronomy chapter 14, just want to look at the first two verses. We're going to focus on the second verse, but I want you to see both of them together as this chapter begins. It says, "You are the children of the Lord your God. You shall not cut yourselves, nor shave the front of your head for the dead, for you are a holy people to the Lord your God, and the Lord has chosen you to be a people for himself, a special treasure above all the peoples who are on the face of the earth." Now, as you think about this, at verse 1, you see this in cultic practices that as they're worshiping false gods, right, that they would cut themselves. You see this even with Elijah and the 450 prophets of Baal. Remember, he says, "Oh no, you can just." They were cutting themselves and all the other horrendous things that are going along with that, and just unspeakable things, and even that, and even shaving their forehead. It was things that they would do for those gods, and as it says here, for the dead, and it was the whole thing. It's like, don't do those things. Don't try to make those practices. And you've seen this before in other passages. Don't take those things and try to bring them to the Lord and then use them for the Lord. Don't take the way that you worship false gods and then think that you're going to worship the one true God that way. And we just talked about that recently. The reason being, right? A lot of times that's what we want to know, right? We want to know the why. Well, why can't I do that? Why, as you go through the chapter, why do I have to eat a certain thing? Why is it that I can't eat other foods? And again, right, we know in the New Testament it says, well, hey, all things are clean. All things have been made clean. At the same time, not everything is good for us. Right? There's some things even here that I think God was telling them not to eat because it just wasn't good for them. It wasn't healthy. So even with all that, the thing that would set them apart is ultimately, man, they were following one God. All these other cultures, man, they had numerous gods, thousands of gods, and little idols and handmade gods. And man, they had a God for every little thing. So the fact that they trusted in Yahweh, this one God, singular God, that alone would be enough to kind of set you apart. But I'll say it this way. That wasn't enough to be set apart. God said, I want you to stand out from all the variety. And one of the ways that he wanted them to stand out was, hey, look, when you start obeying the laws, when you dress a certain way, when you eat a certain way, when you talk a certain way, when you act a certain way, when you stop work on a certain day, when you worship on a certain day, when you do this and you don't do that, and all these things that we've been talking about and we've seen through the law, those things were going to make them stand apart. Now, their obedience to those things was not what earned them salvation, right? Their salvation came by trusting in the one true God. And what is the way that we show, and especially them, how they showed their allegiance to God was by obedience. Remember, obedience over sacrifice. Well, we see the same thing even in our lives today, that He has called us to be different, right? That holy is to be set apart. But it's also where we get, from even our English word holy, you get from the word whole, right? He is trying to make us wholly different, completely different from the world. And I'll tell you what, in our world today, there is a lot of variety. But when you stand up for biblical principles, when you stand up for the name of Jesus Christ, when you decide that you're not going to follow the crowd, when you're not going to worry about trying to dress like the world, act like the world, look like the world, talk like the world, worship like the world, party like the world, and just go down that laundry list of things like the world, even in all its variety, they will look at the church today and they say, man, y'all are a bunch of sticks in the mud. And man, y'all just do this and you don't do that. And man, that just looks like no fun at all. Don't you think that's the same thing people said about Israel? Yet they were being obedient to God's command. Today, God is calling us to do the same, right? Doing those good things, doing the things that He's called us to do is not what's going to earn us salvation either. But because we have been saved, because we have been set apart, we are to be used of God and we are to be obedient so that, man, our actions, that what we display for the world will be so strangely different from the world that people must take notice. They cannot refuse the testimony of our example before them. That they cannot say, man, I've never seen any difference in that person's life. No, instead, they would say, man, even if you get this, that even if they don't understand why we're different, that they can see that we are. And then maybe, just maybe, they'll ask us why we're different. Many of you have heard me say before, right? New Testament tells us always to be prepared, be ready to give a defense for the hope that is within you. And I usually say it this way. If there is no hope in you, if the world does not see any hope in you and doesn't see a difference in your life, they're never going to ask you why, because you look just like them. But man, when you have a hope and a peace and a strength that passes every other common wisdom and every other man-made thing on this earth, when they see that and they say, it doesn't make sense to me, then, be honest, then we're looking more and more like Jesus. Even within what we follow in with Jesus, we still have our own variety. We still have our own spiritual gifts. And it's a beautiful variety within the church. But today I want you to think about that main point. That we have been called and set apart to be wholly different from the world. God bless you. And I pray you have a great, great day.